So now we come to the second part of my 5-part series on how to heal your digestion and detoxify your whole body in 5 steps. I wrote this presentation for anybody that is suffering from anxiety and depression, digestive issues such as constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, bloating, acid reflux, or strong reactions whenever you eat. For anybody that has chronic inflammation in your body or has systemic pain, that is suffering from autoimmune disorders or skin issues. Virtually anybody that is suffering from any health condition needs to know this information because your digestion is the epicenter of your immune system. It's where all of the tissue layers in your body start to build. Having a strong digestion is absolutely imperative to health. 73% of the American population suffers from irritable bowel syndrome symptoms on a regular basis. Why is that? It used to be that our ancestors for thousands of years used these preservation methods such as fermentation in order to preserve our food during winter periods and famine. What we may not have known at that time is that not only was that giving us food during winter and famine, but it was actually providing our body with really, really important microbes and bacteria that our body needs. Our digestive tract has 4 to 6 pounds of bacteria in it that perform so many important functions that scientists are now referring to it as the forgotten organ. It is what controls the peristalsis, so the way when you swallow your food, that's controlled by your gut bacteria. So abnormalities in peristalsis, it goes fast, such as diarrhea, or it goes super slow, like constipation, that is directly impacted by your gut bacteria. It controls your food cravings. So high levels of bad bacteria in your gut will actually drive you to eat sugars and processed foods, which contribute to and directly cause actually inflammation in your body. You know that you're inflamed if you're suffering from achy joints, back pain, neck pain on a regular basis, that those are signs of inflammation in your body. And inflammation is the precursor to many different types of diseases, and it actually comes from your gut. Do you know what else inflammation actually does? Is that it suppresses the frontal cortex in your brain, and that is what causes anxiety and depression. So these cognitive issues, foggy mind, inability to concentrate, depression and anxiety have direct correlations in your digestive function. The second assault is antibiotics. Now, a lot of times people assume that to be impacted by antibiotic intake, you have to take them directly yourself. That's not true. The World Health Organization recognizes antibiotic use in farm animals and livestock as a worldwide threat to our health. So anytime we use antibiotics on anything, animals or human beings, it impacts everybody. And certainly if you take antibiotics yourself, that's a double whammy. And the third assault to our digestive system is just the overall quality of our food. Soil quality has decreased, and the increase in the amount of preservatives and dyes and other things that we use in mainstream food has really weakened our digestive system. So it's no surprise that we're seeing things like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, autoimmune disorders, skin allergies, seasonal allergies, and all of these issues that are related to a strong digestive system are really on the increase and really on the rise. So more than ever, everybody has to implement intestinal healing practices into your everyday life. And definitely, if you're trying to recover from an illness, you must do these things. So what I do is I actually guide my clients through 4 specific steps when I'm working to heal their digestion. And I'm going to tell you what those are. So the first step is to implement an elimination diet. So perhaps you've heard of an elimination diet. Maybe you yourself are on one. It's when you've gone gluten-free or dairy-free. It's when a person notices that they're having a reaction to something that they're eating. So that could be something like gas or a digestive issue. It could be a skin reaction. It could mean that their sinuses have gotten, yucky. It could mean that they have a cognitive issue. They can't concentrate. They get a foggy mind. And they notice that when they cut that food item, once they figured out what it is and they cut it out from their diet, they start to feel better. Their symptom goes away. So that's the first thing that we have to do. Now, this doesn't mean that we've addressed the cause, and this doesn't mean that we've fixed the issue. It means that we've sort of reduced the symptom, which is great. And also, the other thing that it does do is that it significantly reduces the inflammation in your body. Because when you eat that food trigger, what's happening is your immune system is going in overdrive, and it sees that food item as a foreign entity. And so then it starts to attack it. So it creates inflammation in your body. With that inflammation, you're actually degrading your gut even further, and you're creating more inflammation in your gut, which is then creating more intestinal injury, which increases your likelihood that in 5 years from now, where perhaps you were just reacting to 1 or 2 food items, now you're reducing to 5 or to 6. So the first step is absolutely to cut out those food triggers from your diet. Then we go into the second step, which is to start getting at the root of what's going on here. So we do that through implementing some kind of a fasting method. So fasting, in the most general sense, is caloric restriction. And there's many different fasting methods that a person can implement. And choosing the correct fasting method for your constitution is extraordinarily important. You have to choose the correct fasting method, not only for your physical constitution, but your mind too. So a person needs to feel comfortable and safe about the fasting method that they're doing. If there's a lot of fear and you're gonna reduce somebody's calories, you're basically generating a lot of anxiety. And like we already talked about, mind and gut are connected. Fear contributes to digestive upset and issues. And we'll go into more of how that actually works, the actual mechanics of that in a little bit. But for now, I just want you to know that. So you have to feel comfortable and at ease with the fasting method that you're choosing. Now, there are things like intermittent fasting, where you're abstaining from food from about a 12 to a 16-hour window each day. And that's something that's really a part of Ayurvedic lifestyle practices also. There's just straight water fasting. Very seldom would I advise doing that. Not being underneath supervision. I mean, really, take responsibility for yourself and your choices. I've done water fasts unsupervised, and people have been doing water fasts for thousands of years all over the world. But if you have fear about it, or you're not sure if you can do it, then you may want to do something like that supervised. Also, you can't be on medication when you're doing a water fast, so it may be helpful for you to work with a practitioner that's able to oversee it. And it's extreme. So not many people are able to work and function while doing a water fast. It's really better for you to rest and to let yourself heal and to rejuvenate. And then you've got juice fasts. So juice fasts are good for people that have different lymphatic congestive issues, which we'll get into this in a little bit, but the lymphatics is your body's sewage system, and symptoms of a congested lymphatic system are things like fibroids or accumulations or stagnation or build-up issues, basically, in the body. So juicing can really help with cleansing and stimulating the lymphatics in your body. But juicing can be contraindicated if you have things like candida or even different bacterial imbalances in the body, which can actually thrive and feed off of these sugary type juices. The next type of fasting method is soups, easy to digest, vegan soups that help to nourish the intestinal lining. And the last fasting method is broths. So perhaps you are most familiar with using bone stock or meat stock broths. And the reason for that is because those sources have a high amount of gelatin and glutamine in them, which is very healing for the intestinal tract. However, you can also use vegetarian sources of stocks that come from seaweeds. So seaweeds have a complete amino acid profile that is very similar to bone stock and meat stock broths and is very effective for healing the intestinal lining. And you need those amino acids because that is how you actually make serotonin, and that's how you make dopamine. Those are your feel-good and mood neurotransmitters. So if you've got a lot of inflammation in your gut, if you're not assimilating and digesting well, you're not going to be extracting and utilizing those amino acids, which go on to make those neurotransmitters. The serotonin also has a lot to do with that gut peristalsis also in your gut. So those neurotransmitters, 80% of serotonin is actually in your gut, and 30% of dopamine is in your gut, not in your brain. So it just kind of gives you an additional perspective on how important and valuable the digestive system actually is. The third step, so again, the first step is to eliminate all of your dietary triggers. The second step is to implement fasting methods. And fasting, what it does is it accelerates healing. It accelerates healing across the board. It is one of the most powerful regenerative forms of medicine, maybe almost the most powerful that we have. It's something we've been doing for thousands of years. It's something animals do naturally in the wild whenever they're sick. We have seen through scientific studies that fasting extends the lifespan of everything from a simple, bacteria and yeast to a monkey to a human being. It regenerates, it helps your body clean up house and get rid of scar tissue and balance blood sugar, balance blood pressure, helps to, stimulate weight loss, and it's the most anti-aging thing that you can do. So it accelerates the regeneration and healing of your digestive system. The third step is to balance the gut bacteria. So the gut bacteria, like I said, is 4 to 6 pounds of gut bacteria in your gut. And it controls how you absorb vitamins and minerals, your peristalsis, the overall inflammation in your body. Your bacteria actually talks to the cells in your intestinal lining. They communicate with each other. It's connected. It's connected with us. It's a part of us. And so if you are not continuously repopulating your gut with these good bacteria and feeding those good bacteria, because there's two parts to that. There's one is the actual bacteria. So eating probiotic rich foods is going to actually help to populate your gut. But then there's prebiotics. The prebiotics are the food for the probiotics. So you have to be populating your gut with probiotics, and you need to be feeding the gut with prebiotics. Now, if somebody has a health condition or an issue, I may use a natural antibiotic, of which there are many. You've got things like oregano essential oil. And when it's encapsulated, it's wonderful because it will clear out pathogenic or bad bacteria in the small intestine if you get it encapsulated correctly. You never want to take it for more than 2 weeks at a time. And then you want to be very aggressive at repopulating the good bacteria in your gut after that. Berberine is another really wonderful natural antibiotic that also helps to stimulate liver detoxification. Honey, Manuka honey, is very antibacterial and antifungal. Coconut oil, for that matter. A lot of times when people have candida or yeast infections or yeast problems and they take coconut oil, they'll get really sick feeling, and that's the die-off, essentially. So you may need to do a course of herbal antibiotics to help with balancing and restoring the gut bacteria, because if you're not repopulating the good bacteria, there's always a balance of good and bad bacteria in your gut. If you're not eating and nourishing the good guys in your digestion, the bad guys start to rise because they actually eat some of the same food sources. And your good bacteria repopulates slowly and depletes quickly. So if you have a digestive issue or any of the other issues that I've mentioned already several times, then that's something that you want to be super cognizant of. And you may need to do a course of herbal antibiotics to sort of clear out the bad stuff. But just because it's herbal doesn't mean it's not powerful. You can't abuse that stuff. You can't use it ongoing, or you're going to run into the same consequences and problems as somebody who's used a lot of pharmaceutical antibiotics. So balancing gut bacteria. Then the next step is to actually heal the cell lining. So step number 4 is to heal the cell lining. And maybe we should just do a recap really quickly. So the first step is the elimination diet. The second step is doing fasting to accelerate healing and regeneration in the gut. The third step is to balance gut bacteria. And the fourth step is to actually heal the cell lining in the gut. So your cell lining, which is this epithelium and mucosa that lines the entire intestinal tract along the lumen, which is the opening, and it's covered in these tightly knitted cell doors, essentially, that open and close, that should open and close and allow good to come in and to keep the bad out. When you have chronic inflammation in your gut, the mucosa and everything starts to break down. Those doors start to get all wonky and they don't open and shut like they're supposed to. So when you have these doors that aren't working efficiently, and then your body is eating these food proteins, it's not necessarily the gluten per se's fault or the dairy per se's fault or whatever it is that you're reacting to. You can react to oxalates in vegetables. You can react to just pretty much anything. It's not necessarily the food, but when your doors are open, what would happen in a healthy digestive system is these doors would only be opening up this much, and the food particles would be broken down super, super, super tiny before they got into the bloodstream. When it's like this, then food particles that are larger size, that are not broken down, it's a different particle. It's a different entity, basically. That is what comes into your bloodstream, and your body doesn't recognize it. And that's what creates an immune system reaction. Your body tags it as a foreign invader. And that's when you get an allergic reaction, foggy mind, a skin reaction. So by healing the intestinal lining, reducing inflammation in the gut, repairing the mucosa, balancing the bacterial levels, you can start to bring those essentially heal those ulcerations, that are lining the cell lining, bring the doors back shut. So how do I do that? So I use things that have a lot of glutamine in them. So seaweed soups, stocks, and broths are very healing. Ghee is another thing that I do use, which is clarified butter, and it's very anti-inflammatory for the digestion. We do a practice in Ayurveda that's called snehana, where you take, a teaspoon and you put it in hot water, or you could put it in a hot spiced tea, and you drink it first thing in the morning. And so that ghee, it's like a salve, it's like a salve along the intestinal lining. Now, there's a couple things we need to be careful about. If the person's gallbladder is deficient, they may react to the ghee, and then you'll see symptoms of acid reflux. Now, every single time a person has an acid reflux problem, it doesn't mean that their gallbladder is not working correctly, but that certainly is one of the primary causes that it contributes to that issue. So, fats, ghee, seaweed, things that have a lot of amino acids and glutamine, or glutamine supplement powders you could also use. Aloe vera juice is also very healing for the intestinal lining. Aloe vera juice is also a laxative. So for somebody that already has loose bowel, that can create different issues or problems for them. And then mucilage herbs. So if you listen to the word mucilage, you're going to hear mucus. And so it's a category of herbs that actually help to heal the mucosa along the cell lining. So slippery elm, marshmallow root, licorice root are all herbs that actually help to heal the cell lining. The next step, after going through all of those steps, is to start to diversify the diet. So going all the way back to step 1, which was to do an elimination diet. So the depth to which you want to do an elimination diet varies from person to person. For somebody that's got digestive issues, allergies, skin reactions, they're reacting to all these kinds of food, you probably want to put them on a pretty strict elimination diet where you're like cutting out anything and everything that could possibly be triggering them. And you're consuming a very simple diet that has very few food items, and implement things like food combining rules, so not combining, proteins with carbohydrates, for example. So implementing very strong food combining rules and cutting out pretty much as you possibly can. Now, for somebody that's got an autoimmune issue, for example, you may be able to get away with just cutting out, grains like wheat, of course, and gluten, and then leaving the seed grains like quinoa or amaranth. So the type of elimination diet that you do varies according to person. The more severe the issue, the more strict the elimination diet is. So the last step is to gradually start to introduce those foods again and see if there's a reaction. Now, how long does all of this take? So really, in my program, we make huge strides in about 6 weeks. in about 6 weeks. You can get to like a strong foundational base where the person is on their feet and you know what's creating a reaction. You have them on a solid diet and they're able to live their life, and you've taken them through that really solid intestinal healing. When you're super dedicated and you just go for it, you just jump in and you just do it, you can make a lot of accelerated results happen super fast. But that being said, after that 8-week period is over, you're not going to be like, probably just like a normal person without any issues after 8 weeks. It can take up to a year to fully heal your digestive system. Some studies have said that it's taken 2 years of being strictly off gluten to see things like eczema start to clear up. But if you do it well, and you do like the herbal antibiotics, and you do the probiotics, and you do the intestinal healers, and you do the fasting, in 4 to 6 weeks, you can make a massive transformation in somebody's life and get them onto a pretty solid footing in that short period of a time. So thank you so much. Below this video, you're going to find a dietary triggers quiz. You can take it to help you to understand which of your symptoms are created by different types of triggers, so that you can start to know which foods that you need to eliminate from your diet. Thank you so much for your time today, and I hope that this information aids you on your path.